everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to Kitchen Table Meta. So today's video is super special. I'm super excited to be bringing it to you guys, and that is the strategy of how to draft the brand new Draft Box 3. And if you guys haven't seen this bad boy, it is awesome. I did a box opening, a special box opening with this box, sponsored by PPG. You can check that out up here somewhere. I'll pop it up so you guys can see it. It'll also have a link for it in the description below. In that box opening, I opened up all the packs, but I also opened the packs up and kind of gave you guys my first pick and like what card I would take if I was actually drafting it. So I thought that was a pretty cool addition to the box opening. Again, guys, if you haven't got your draft box yet, please order it from Pro Play Games. They're just a fantastic company, but more importantly than that, they actually have a sick deal with their draft box, which is you get one of every draft box leader when you get their draft box. So normally you get the draft box, and the draft box will have 4 of 1 leader, but they actually are including 1 of every leader for you. So it's a great deal, and these draft box leaders are awesome. So I actually even have, I'll link a video up here where I go over all the draft box leaders as well, which is just, they're all so cool. So it's definitely worth it. Unlike other draft box where there might just be like 1 good leader, all these leaders are insane. So definitely go to Pro Play Games to check that out. Also, while we're on the topic of Pro Play Games, please, guys, if you haven't already, go pre-register for the Orlando Regional coming up. And don't forget that Sunday, so the regional's on Saturday. On Sunday, they're having a 2K Super Sunday event, which is a $2,000 cash tournament for Dragon Ball Super, guys. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please go show your support, go show your love for Pro Play Games and the fact that they're bringing cash tournaments to our game. This is super important for our game because it's something that the community has really asked for, and Pro Play Games has went out of their way to bring that to you guys. So go show your support so they'll keep doing it. Also, one more note before we move on. Remember that if you see some weird edits in the video, it's because I'm coughing. I'm still a little sick, so if I'll be talking sometimes, I'll just start coughing and hacking, so I'll edit that out. So that's why there's that weird ad break, and I really, really apologize for that. Hopefully I'll get back on the mend here pretty soon. All right, so let's get into the video. So in this video, I'm going to cover the strategy behind the Draft Box 3 set. So that is the Colossus Warfare and World Martial Arts Tournament packs. Those are the packs you get in the box. So I'll be covering cards from those 2 sets. So if you're wondering why I'm not talking about some other cards, that's why I'm specifically covering those 2 sets in this video. However, these tips and tricks, the strategy will help you in any kind of Dragon Ball draft, and actually will probably help you in drafting just in general. Some of them kind of correlate to other card games as well. All right, so one of the first things I learned when I got into Limited for the first time was the BREAD acronym. And that is, B-R-E-A-D, 5 letters that are supposed to help you draft. So as you open up your packs, as you're looking at your cards, you think of that acronym, and then you look at the cards, and that's supposed to help you choose your pick. And it really did help me. It really helped me kind of keep in perspective what I was supposed to do, what cards I was supposed to take. And so what I want to do is I want to take that acronym, I want to take those letters, I want to break it down for Dragon Ball Super and go over why it's so effective and why it's a great starting spot for any kind of new drafter or even experienced drafters as well. It's something that I know even top Magic the Gathering players still use. It's just a great acronym. It's something great to keep in mind. So first off is B. So B stands for bombs, or the big boys. They have these big game-ending cards that will make you essentially win the game when you play them. Now, they're just big, strong cards you play out, and they put a lot of pressure on your opponent, or they just kind of take over the game. Now, these cards in red will be triple flash SS4 Son Goku. In blue, we have Dragon Fist SS3 Son Goku. In green, we have Combo Killer Analyza. Yellow, we have Height of Mastery Son Goku. And in black, we have Mira Crater Absorb. And these are cards we've seen, win in Standard. They're going to obviously do the same thing in Draft. Now, keep in mind that while most of these examples I'm showing you are super rares, there are big like rares and uncommons that are also considered game winners. But I just want to give you guys the general example of big, strong cards that you can build your deck around and really take over Draft. Now, also I want to kind of list an example that's a bad example of a bomb and something that people might get confused of. I'm going to do this with all the letters. And that is Jiren Universe's Strongest. And this is a 12 cost creature that's 40,000 power, has quadruple strike, has deflect, looks like this big game-ending card. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that in Limited, the games are going to go a lot longer. Having 6 and 7 energy is going to be much more common in Draft than it will be in Standard or something. People have more refined decks. However, 12 energy in itself is very, very hard to get to in any format. Now, what's going to happen here, though, is people will see the permanent of this card, which says when there are 9 or more Universe 11 in your drop area, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 6, making this card a 6 cost, which is super reasonable and actually extremely scary. Now, remember, we only have Colossal Warfare and World Martial Arts Tournament, and there's just not enough Universe 11 in those 2 sets to make this card at all viable. So I really don't want you guys to kind of see this card and go, oh my gosh, it's a bomb, it's quadruple strike, I gotta draft it, and then realize that it's just almost impossible to support the Universe 11 needed to make this card at all playable. So that's an example of a bad bomb, and keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of cards in this set in particular that require swap or require you to have a World Martial Arts Tournament, or even require both cards, to be together with the World Martial Arts Tournament. They have to both be in the play at the same time. And I think a lot of people are going to see those cards, think they're bombs, and just realize that they don't have the pieces necessary to make them be as strong as they could be. Now, some general tips about bombs in this draft format is remember that yellow in itself is really weak in the bomb department. They don't have any like that. They don't have very many good standalone cards. And honestly, most of their strongest cards require to either have swap or World Martial Arts to be effective. So keep that in mind. Now, this isn't necessarily a downside. Keep in mind, because of these weird requirements for yellow, it's very possible that those colors will be open. People won't be drafting yellow because they'll be, in their first pack, they might open a really good red card or a really good green card, and they'll be more apt to stay in those colors, leaving yellow to be pretty open. So just keep that in mind, but also remember that swap in itself is a very popular mechanic, so there'll probably be one person trying to draft swap, so just keep that in mind. The yellow, as far as all the bombs go, is a little weak, but you can take advantage of that in the bomb department. All right, so moving on to R from the bread acronym is removal. Now, in my opinion, removal is the most important part of this piece. Now, while bombs win you the game, a lot of the times removal stops you from losing the game, which can be a lot more important in Dragon Ball than other games like Magic or Force World to have drafting. Because a lot of times in those games, you require a big, strong monster or creature to break through the defense. In Dragon Ball, it's a lot more, it's a much more tempo-based game. So a lot of times just surviving will allow you to win. You can win with a 1-drop in this game. You can't do that in a lot of the other games. So because of that, removal is very high and very close to bombs I would say a lot more close than in other games. Now, even in games like Magic, I'll oftentimes prioritize removal just because I like that control playstyle. I like to make sure I don't get caught off guard or my opponent doesn't play something out that's, extremely powerful that I can't deal with. Though, keep in mind, though, in Dragon Ball, a lot of the big bombs do have barrier, which shut down removal, so keep that in mind as well. It does lower the value of removal a little bit. Now, some examples of some good removal cards in this set. I'm going to go over some different types of removal. In red, we have Revenge Death Ball, which is a fantastic removal card, but this is an extra card. It does require you to have a baby leader, which is possible. Remember, one of the draft box leaders itself is a baby leader, but just remember that it's important to remember that removal comes in a bunch of different types. In blue, we have Oath's Power, Tapion. In green, we have Kami's Power, Piccolo. In yellow, we have Double Chop Nom, which is just a fantastic removal card in itself. It does require to have a yellow World Tournament leader, but it's just such a cool and very powerful removal card. In black, we have another unique removal card, which is Umbral Invitation Toa. Now, this actually steals the card from your opponent, which is removal. It just also allows you to have the card as well. It's a Overwhelm card, which is also fantastic. So remember, removal comes in a bunch of different shapes and sizes. It's not just KO a card. It can be used in a bunch of different extra cards and battle cards. Just keep that in mind. Now, an example of a bad removal card, something that you probably wouldn't want to consider removal, is Sneak Attack Son Goku. Now, this is a card that when it comes to play, you actually choose one of your opponent's cards and return it to their hand. Now, this may seem like removal because it's getting rid of it. It's putting it back in their hand. It's no longer in the field. But this is more of a tempo play, and be very careful with these types of cards, especially what cards you target with this effect, because a lot of cards in Dragon Ball get an auto when they come into play. For example, Sneak Attack Son Goku himself does that, right? So if you bounce the wrong type of card to your opponent's hand, you might actually be giving them an advantage. So keep that in mind. While Sneak Attack Son Goku is a great card, I'm not trying to say don't draft it, just remember that be really careful classifying it as removal, and if you do have to use it as removal in your deck, make sure you're targeting cards that actually set your opponent behind and not giving them an advantage. All right, so up next we have E for efficiency. Now this is really important because Dragon Ball really revolves around efficient cards, right? Cards that refill your hand, cards that stop your opponent from attacking, just cards that all, untap energy, just cards that all around are just efficient, right? That do something other than just come into play and set there. Now, some examples of these efficient cards. In red, we have Heroic Duo Videl. This is a battle card that also negates, which is great. In blue, we have Hoi, Emissary of Flame. Now, honestly, I just put the best super combo here, in my opinion, in this set. But keep in mind, any super combo goes in this efficiency slot. But also keep in mind that you can still only have 4 super combos in your deck. That is a keyword of super combos, so you can only have 4 in your deck, even though in draft you can have as many copies of a card in your deck. But with super combos, you still want to have 4. Another example here is a Legendary Flute, something I want to talk about. This card is itself is really efficient, but honestly requires a card that is also good to bounce with it, right? So you need to, on itself, it's still very good, but you want to make sure that you have something cool to bounce back in your hand, something efficient to bounce back in your hand, but in a pinch, it's still good just to return a blocker or something from your opponent as well. We've seen the power of Flute in Standard, so it's not something I want to spend too much time talking about. In green, we have Nell, the Namekian Ace. This is a great card, 2-drop 10k attacker. Then when it attacks, if it has Bond, gets 5k and draws you a card. That's great. It's aggressive, plus draws you a card, replaces itself, very efficient. Carry Mother Videl in yellow is another example of this, which is a card you play out. You can choose another card, give it plus 5k, and you draw a card, replaces itself, makes your other threats more strong, which is really important. In black, we have Announcer, Ever Curious. Now, this is the 1-cost card you play out. You can look at the top 7 and choose a World Tournament card. These, searching cards are very efficient and very good at what they do. They help thin out your deck. They also help you find cards you need in certain situations. Just very, very efficient. Now, as an example of a bad efficient card, I want to give you an example of Shocking Latent Ability. Now, this card is insane, a very, very good card. It says if your leader card is Oob, it gains plus 10,000 power for the duration of the battle, and you draw 1 card. Extremely efficient, right? It replaces itself. It makes your leader get plus 10,000 power, so you can use that to KO a troublesome card or just survive an attack. It's good offensively and defensively. Just a great, efficient card. Now, why this card is bad, though, is because only 1 leader in the entire game can use it in draft. So keep in mind, don't see this card and go, oh my god, this card is super efficient, I'm going to draft it, and then you never get an Oob leader, meaning this card would be completely worthless. So while it is very efficient, it is very restrictive in how you can play it. So make sure you either have Oob first, which by the way is a great leader to draft in this format, but make sure you have the means before you get the ends, if that makes sense. Don't just draft this card because you think it's efficient. You never get Oob and you just wasted your pick. Also keep in mind that a lot of the more efficient cards just delay the inevitable. So cards like, counter cards are a good example of this, even super combos to some extent. They just delay the inevitable. That's why it's really important to have removal or bombs to back these cards up. So these cards help you survive, they help you get that card advantage, and then you use your bombs and removal and your aggressive cards to win the game. You're not going to win the game off just efficiency alone, so definitely keep that in mind. All right, so moving on to A, we have aggressive / awaken cards. Now, these are just cards that are super aggressive or cards that help you awaken, both very important in draft. Now, aggressive strategies are often a lot stronger in draft than they are in standard because, players don't have as many defensive tools as they do in standard. They don't have Sensu Beans, they don't have as many counters, they don't have as many blockers. They just don't have a deck that's as defensive, so it makes aggressive cards a lot better. Now, also keep in mind it's really important to still have ways to self-awaken in draft as well. Now, keep in mind that in this set, we do have super combos that work at 5 life, so it's not, you can set at 5 life a little bit better, but keep in mind that a lot of players sometimes will knock you to 5, let you set there, and then develop their board while they're awakened, drawing cards and doing all this really cool stuff. So it's always important to be able to awaken. So that, because of that, I put it in the A category here. I think this is about right for it to be. It's important to awaken. You don't want to always quickly awaken though in draft because your life is very important. Again, without as many defensive tools, even when you awaken, sometimes you can just die because you don't have that many ways to keep yourself alive once you're awakened like you do and standard. Okay, so moving on. In red, we have Digging Deep Vegeta. I love this card to awaken. It's aggressive and awakening. It fits both of those things, which is very powerful. In blue, we have the World Tournament Pan card, which is super cool. Now, keep in mind that we have Intensifying Power Trunks, we have Pan in blue, and we have Gohan in green. All three of those are fantastic cards and very, very powerful in draft. They help you awaken. They do a lot of damage. They're good late game. They're just great cards. So I have Pan in the blue section here to talk about those cards, but keep in mind this could be the Trunks, this could be the Gohan. These are just fantastic cards for this category. In green, we have the Mecha Duo Piranha. Now, this card is super cool. It's efficient. It does a lot of stuff. But the big part I want to talk about this card is not only does it replace itself, which is really good, but it has critical. And critical is a very aggressive keyword and very, very powerful in draft. So keep that in mind as well. Any card that has critical is going to be very good in this category as well. It's just very hard for your opponent to, if they want to take the hit, they lose a card. If they combo to stop the hit, they lose a card as well. So it's just very hard for your opponent to stop these cards in a not so defensive format. In yellow, we have Instant Transmission. Now this is more towards the Awakening category, and just an example of a different type of Awakening card. Now, this card in particular does need a Goku's Lineage Leader, but I just want to use this as an example of how you can have Awakening cards in other colors. Okay, so in black, we have Dimension Support Trunks, and this is a really cool card I want to talk about and why it's so powerful in draft. Now, this is an Overwhelm 3 for 1, which in itself is very efficient. You get a 15,000 attacker. And what's really cool is this auto, when you Overwhelm with this card, you can search your deck for a skillless battle card, put it into play, and it gets critical until the end of turn. Now, that's really important. We talked about how powerful critical is in draft. What's also really cool is this turns your vanilla, kind of crappy skillless cards into a real threat. And that's something that's very easy to do in draft, which is like, you want to fill out the rest of your deck. You just use some of these skillless cards. They're going to make, they're going to make the rounds. No one's going to, first pick these skillless cards. And this is a way to turn those cards into, powerhouses, make them more effective, which is super cool. So I really want to bring this up. It's a very aggressive card. It's also very efficient. Just a really, really cool card in draft. It's really cool. Just a neat card to talk about. Now, what's an example of a bad aggressive card? Now, this is going to be something that might cause a little bit of controversy, but I think in draft, it's pretty safe to say that Test of Strength, Son Goku, and Oob are going to be bad aggressive cards. And what I mean by that is obviously if you can meet the conditions of these cards, right? If you can get both of them. Now, they're two rares. That's going to be in itself pretty difficult to open, especially in only the limited amount of World Tournament packs you get. And on top of that, you need a World Martial Arts leader. Now, if you get all that together, these cards are going to be insane. Obviously, they're going to be extremely aggressive. They're extremely powerful cards. I'm just really afraid these cards are going to be a trap for a lot of players. I think they're going to see these cards. They're going to know how good these cards are in standard, and they're going to draft them, and they're never going to get the other piece. And they're just going to have this 3-drop 15K that doesn't do a whole lot for them. Now, keep in mind that if you do an example of cards like this, I think are just a little bit better, or just the tiny rivals Goku and Trunks, right? They don't require you to have a World Martial Arts tournament. They're not rares, they're uncommon, so they're going to be more likely for you to get, and they're obviously extremely powerful once you get them. So just keep in mind, I'm not saying don't draft Son Goku and Oob. Obviously those cards are insane together. Just remember that they are a little bit of a trap because they can lead you into, getting these cards that really don't do anything if you don't have the other one. And do definitely keep in mind Tiny Rivals, Son Goku and Trunks. I think these two cards are just insane and going to be two of the best cards for draft from the World Martial Arts tournament, especially if you're obviously going into red. All right, so moving on to the last final letter, which is D for duds. And this is just everything else. It's just the cards, the leftovers, the scraps that tend to come along. Sometimes you can take advantage of these cards, so still, pick intelligently, but a lot of the times these cards are just cards either out of your color or cards that you really can't splash. So keep in mind that in Dragon Ball, cards can be used as combo cards. So, for example, the new World Martial Arts Double Strike card is a card that might make its rounds because players don't realize that can be used in a blue deck or whatever. But most of the time, these are just going to be cards that just aren't going to be that great, and that's where these fall into place. Now, before I get out of here, I do want to cover my three don'ts when drafting this format. Now, these are 3 things that I want you guys to really try hard not to do. And if you can manage not to do these 3 things, I think you're going to set yourself up for a pretty good draft coming up this weekend. So first of all, don't fall into the archetype trap. And what I mean by that is swap, bond, all the World Tournament cards. They're all great mechanics. You know, you have Namekians, which look really cool. You know, you have all these really cool things in these in these 2 sets. But keep in mind that your pool is limited. There's not that many packs to choose from, and because of that, a lot of these themes just aren't going to pan out. So be really careful whenever you're trying to, you know, you say, okay, I'm gonna go swap deck. Here we go. You know, you might not get all the swap cards, and you're gonna have a lackluster deck because of that. So just choose powerful cards, and if you can see that swaps open, you can manage to get those cards, great. But just don't fall into that trap. Don't start off the draft saying, I'm gonna get the swap mechanic, or I'm gonna do bond, or I'm gonna make this awesome World Tournament deck, because oftentimes you're not gonna get the cards together, and you're gonna have just a not very good deck. Second off, be really careful not to force something in the draft. And what I mean by forcing is, you know, if you open your first pack and it's a sick blue card, you get this awesome blue bomb, and you're like, okay, bread baby, blue bomb, here we go. And your second pack gets, you know, passed around, and there's no blue in it. Okay, and you go, okay, I'll just, you know, pick a decent card. Your next pack comes around and there's just one lackluster blue card. Don't pick that blue card just because you got a really good blue card off your first pack. Remember, the first couple picks that go through, you're just picking the best cards you can. After that, you're picking the open color. You're picking the color that goes through. If your first, you know, pick is an awesome blue card, your second pick is an awesome red card, but you're noticing that every one of these packs have just a ton of awesome yellow cards in it, then just switch to yellow. Start getting the good yellow cards. It's better to have a great, awesome, cohesive deck than it is to have 1 or 2 awesome cards with a bunch of other terrible cards, in the deck. And third thing is a really big pet peeve of mine, and that is do not hate draft. I see so many people do this where, you know, they'll see Goku, you know, the Son Goku go through, and they'll go, okay, you know, Dusty said don't get that card. You know, you have to have Oob for it to be good, so I'm not going to pick Son Goku. And they start, you know, drafting their deck, and then they'll see Oob come through. You know, maybe 2 packs later, they'll see Oob come through, and they'll go, oh my gosh, I don't want the guy to get Son Goku and Oob. I better hate draft this Oob, and they'll take Oob out of the pack so someone else can't have it. That's what we call hate drafting. Now, the problem with this is that it makes your deck worse, right? If you, especially if it's off color, right? So if you hate draft, you get Oob, and you just wasted a pick. It's much better to say, okay, there's a possibility of Son Goku and Oob being in this draft now. Let me draft a couple cards that fit my playstyle, that fit my deck, that can counter that card. Or you see some big card come through that's out of color, you know, don't take that big crazy yellow card because you're afraid of someone else having it. Just draft a couple removal spells that can kill it. Draft a couple negates that you can, or, you know, counter cards that you can stop it from attacking you and deal with it later, right? It's better to take your deck and build your deck in a way to counter the scary cards than it is to snatching them, because then you're just making your deck unplayable and you're giving yourself less and less playable cards, which in the end is going to make it a lot harder to win, right? You might not even play the person that has that combo, so just be really careful with hate drafting. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you like these type of videos. Again, guys, thank you so much for all the love and support. I can't thank you guys enough, and I hope you guys have a wonderful DraftBox 3 drafting weekend. Please, you know, let me know what your favorite cards for DraftBox 3 are in the comment section below, and definitely let me know how you're drafting with this weekend. If you guys have any questions about drafting, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer questions as soon as possible. Guys, love you so much, and we'll see you next time.